Norman Doidge, M.D. His book, The Brain That Changes Itself, the New York Times, and international bestseller, available in over 100 countries. The discovery of neuroplasticity, that our thoughts can change the structure and function of our brains, even into old age, is the most important breakthrough in our understanding of the brain in 400 years. Dr. Norman Doidge introduces principles that we can all use to overcome a number of brain limitations, and explores the profound brain implications of the changing brain in an immensely moving book that will permanently alter the way we look at human possibility and human nature. Some newspaper reviews here for you, skeptics. He Globe and Mail wrote, Doidge is a master at explaining science to the rest of us. Doidge is the best possible guide. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to read it, just curious about your brain. Buy this book. Your brain will thank you. The New York Times writes, the power of positive thinking finally gained scientific credibility. Mind-bending, miracle-making, reality-busting stuff straddles the gap between science and self-help. And to back that claim up, the appendix contains no less than 300 peer-reviewed brain scan study references for the serious reader. Dr. Doidge explains brain physical structures are actually rewired by everyday activities. Brain scans of taxi drivers show that the more years a cabbie spends navigating London streets, the larger the volume of his hippocampus. Even leisure activities change our brains physically, such as riding a bike. It's visible in brain scanners. It has recently been discovered, 2008, that early childhood trauma, like anger and fear and guilt, causes massive plastic change in the hippocampus, shrinking it so that new, long-term explicit memories cannot form. Animals removed from their mothers, separation trauma, let out desperate cries, then enter a turned-off state, releasing a stress hormone called glucocorticoid, which kills cells in the hippocampus, so it cannot make the synaptic connections in neural networks that make learning and explicit long-term memory possible. These early stresses predispose these motherless animals to stress-related illnesses and lifelong underfunction when they undergo long separations. The gene to initiate production of glucocorticoids gets turned on and stays on for extended periods. Trauma in infancy appears to lead to supersensitization, a plastic alteration of the brain cells that regulate glucocorticoids. Peer-reviewed recent research in humans shows adult survivors of childhood abuse, ones experiencing sustained fear, anger, guilt, show signs of glucocorticoid supersensitivity lasting into adulthood, and thus lifelong underfunctioning, like permanent fear and timidity and anger in adulthood. Dear skeptics, that the brain hippocampus shrinks with stress is an important neuroplastic discovery. Depression, high-stress childhood trauma, all release glucocorticoids and kill cells in the hippocampus, leading to memory loss. The longer people are depressed, the smaller their hippocampus gets. The hippocampus of depressed adults who suffered prepubertal childhood trauma is 18% smaller, and that of depressed adults without childhood trauma. A downside of the plastic brain is we literally lose essential brain real estate in response to negative emotions and activities. The discovery of neuroplasticity, that our thoughts can change the physical structure and function of our brains, even into old age, is the most important breakthrough in our understanding of the brain in 400 years. And to back that claim up, the appendix contains no less than 300 peer-reviewed brain scan study references for the serious reader. Key traumas voiced by online pseudoskeptics include the widely known Santa Claus myth realization, which qualifies as a separation trauma, just like the motherless lab monkeys, and again, possibly far worse. The realization that after years of literal belief, Christianity is just more stories. To some people, who took these stories way too seriously, being overly literal-minded, this great realization is devastating. Another separation trauma, severely affecting the individual's behavior by inducing underfunction, in particular timidity, and producing much of the online pseudoskeptic phenomenon. They are essentially casualties of the growing up process. And likely, people loudly claiming to be skeptics in the public domain are similar style casualties also. And here these traumatized pseudoskeptics are described in Wiki, as in 1994, Susan Blackmore, a parapsychologist who became more skeptical, and eventually became a CSICOP fellow, with James Randi, in 1991, described what she termed the worst kind of pseudo-skepticism, an entire social group suffering timidity. There are some members of the skeptics groups who clearly believe they know the right answer prior to inquiry. They appear not to be interested in weighing alternatives, investigating strange claims, or trying out psychic experiences, or altered states for themselves, heaven forbid. They're identified timidity, but only in promoting their own particular belief structure and cohesion. Reference 9. So that should impress you, skeptics, the very latest brain scan research, supporting Susan Blackmore, the leading light skeptic, after James Randi,